Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the WOW History Channel. My name is Ron Guth, and each week I discuss a topic that hopefully will make you say wow. Now, normally I discuss a historical subject, but this week I'm going to take a side trip for those of you who have a desire to become a published author. Here are a couple of the books that I've written so you get a sense of my background in writing. The first book I ever wrote was Coin Collecting for Dummies. I also wrote The 100 Greatest Women on Coins. That's this book right here. I'm a co-author on the 100 Greatest U.S. Coins, which is this one here. This one is an award-winning book that has gone through, I think, 5 editions now. And I also have written, co-authored the Encyclopedia of U.S. Gold Coins, which is a pretty thick book and has information on all U.S. gold coins from 1795 to 1933. I've also written several other books of more limited circulation, almost all of them about coins, and I've also edited and contributed to many other books. I'm often asked by aspiring writers, how do I write a book? How do I start? How do I get published once I write my manuscript? How long does it take to write a book? So I'll try to answer those and other questions in this episode so that you, perhaps, can someday write your own book, be it fiction or nonfiction. But before I get started, please take a second to hit the subscribe button below if you want to see more videos like this. Every time I get a new subscriber, it helps me move up in YouTube's algorithm, so thank you in advance. I wrote my first book in 1999. I wasn't looking to write a book, it sort of came to me, it fell into my lap. If you're familiar with the Dummies series, you know something like the Sewing for Dummies or Sushi for Dummies books. They're very popular, they're ubiquitous, they're just about everywhere, and they're on every subject you can imagine. Well, the mother company has acquisition editors who go out looking for people to write about a particular subject, and they look for experts in a particular area. Now, because I had an informational website about U.S. coins on the internet, one of their editors contacted me and asked me if I had an interest in writing a book about coin collecting called Coin Collecting for Dummies. Well, first off, I couldn't believe that book hadn't already been written. Coin collecting's been around for a long time. Dummies had been around for a long time. I said, how come no one has ever written a book about coin collecting for dummies? But they hadn't. So I told the editor, well, I've never written a book before. I don't know the first thing about writing a book. I'm willing to give it a shot, but I can't promise anything. So they suggested that I start with a table of contents and a sample chapter to see what my writing style looked like. So if you're familiar with the Dummies books, they're kind of humorous. They have little sidebar boxes, some photographs, some cartoons, and lots of information. So I came up with a proposed table of contents and a sample chapter. I sent it in. They liked it, and they sent back a contract with the terms and what they would pay me to write the book, which is a good deal. I get paid to write a book. Now, when I first got wind that the Dummies people wanted me to write a book, I told my wife that this was such a great opportunity. I was so excited because I would be famous. And, because of that, I would have written the book for free. Now, however, when the contract and the terms came in, I got a little greedy, I have to admit, and I said, no, that's not nearly enough, and I'm not interested in writing under those terms. Well, the terms were actually quite fair, and after some encouragement from my wife, who reminded me about what I'd said about writing the book for free, I called the editor back and said, I'm in. Now that's when the real work began, and that's where the Dummies people taught me how to write a book properly. It was some of the best advice I've ever received, and it's something that has served me well in the years since, and I'm going to share some of it with you now. Perhaps the most important lesson was that not a single word should be written until the table of contents is fleshed out and an outline is completed. Now, when I'm talking about an outline, I mean down to the paragraphs, not some broad outline, but really, really specific and drilling down to the granular level. What this does is it forces you to consider very carefully the structure of your book, including chapters, subchapters, individual topics, and the flow of the story that you're trying to present. I had always envisioned writing a book by sitting down in front of a typewriter or a computer and writing in a linear fashion, starting at the beginning and going in a straight line all the way to the end. However, by creating a strong outline, you can jump from one chapter to another and flesh out each one independently of the others, and you can do it out of order. That way, if you get writer's block, you can move to another topic where your mind is freer and you may be able to write more productively. A good outline keeps you on track, it keeps you focused, and it forces you to be a more effective and efficient writer. Now, this is especially true for nonfiction or technical books, but it also works for fiction as well. So start with a very detailed table of contents and a very granular outline. The Dummies people also taught me to write in a consistent style. For instance, you'll notice that most of the chapter and section titles in Dummies books are gerunds, G-E-R-U-N-D-S. It's pronounced gerunds. These are the so-called ing words. They're nouns they're verbal nouns. So, for example, instead of the title, How to Collect Silver Dollars, the correct Dummies way is to use the title, Collecting Silver Dollars. So you'll see the ing words a lot in the Dummies books, and it's really a great way to title your chapters and the sections in your book. Now, other styles that you may have to use are including when to capitalize words, when to use italics, when to make a word bold, and even how to spell certain words. Like, for instance, do you use G-R-A-Y for gray or G-R-E-Y? You want to make sure that you spell it the same way throughout the book, and that's true of any word. You don't want to have different spellings scattered throughout the book. Now, combined, these rules form what is known as a style sheet, and that is something that you can refer to frequently as you write so that your book will have a consistent appearance. It also makes it easier for the editor to come through and fix things. As you write more and more, these rules that are in the style sheet become embedded in your brain, but it's always a good idea, a necessary idea, to develop a style sheet and stick with it. Then comes the actual writing process. Now, admittedly, inspiration comes in spurts, but I recommend putting aside a minimum amount of time each day to write. It could be half an hour or more, but you need to discipline yourself to stick to whatever schedule you decide and do it every day that you're supposed to be doing it. Even if you're not inspired on a particular day, write something, anything. You can always go back and edit it later, but you want to get your ideas out of your head and onto paper or into a document. Now, and you can always write for more than the allotted time if the spirit moves you. Sometimes you just are on a roll and you just want to keep writing. Go ahead and do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but you want to make sure that you stick to your schedule and write something every day that you're supposed to. Otherwise, you may drag it out too long and you may never finish. There's this thing called ABD. It's called all but dissertation, and it's a real thing, and it refers to PhD candidates who never graduate because they can't finish their dissertations. ABD. Now imagine putting all that work in, all that time, all that expense, and then just giving it up at the end. It's the same thing with a book. You must stick with it. Now, sometimes when authors near the completion of their book, they go through what I call analysis paralysis, or they get stuck in striving for 100% perfection. Now, getting to 95% perfection is easy. Getting above 95% is difficult. And getting to 100% perfection is impossible. It's impossible. You will never get there. In every book I've written, there's been some misspelled word or some mangled grammar or sentence that I find after the book has been published. It's awfully embarrassing, but as embarrassing as that might be, you have to strike a balance between very good on one hand and perfect on the other. You can't achieve perfection, so at some point, you just have to let the manuscript go. Now, how does one go about getting published? Your first book is going to be tough because you're an unknown entity, an unknown author. Publishers are looking for manuscripts that are not only good, but that they think they can sell in quantity. So if yours is a vanity project with a limited audience, I recommend self-publishing using online publishers such as Lulu or Amazon. They also offer on-demand publishing, which means the book is printed only when someone orders it. That's a very convenient thing. You won't make as much money per book, but at least you don't have to buy a ton of books, store them in your house or garage, and do your own fulfillment, which is accounting, shipping, and customer relations. If you're lucky enough to catch the eye of a big publisher, you might be able to get a small advance on your book, plus royalties after a certain number of books are sold. Again, you'll make much less per book by taking that route, but you'll have access to a bigger audience, better marketing, and you won't have to do fulfillment or get involved in any of the actual publishing of the book itself. If you have a desire to write a book, don't put it off another day. Start writing right now. There's something very rewarding about being able to say that you're a published author, and it's a very special feeling the first time someone comes up to you and says, "Will you please autograph your book?" So, to paraphrase the Great British Baking Show, one of my favorite shows on Netflix, get ready, set, and write. Thanks for joining me for this episode. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. I try to answer every comment that comes on my channel. I'll see you next week on another episode of the Wow History Channel. Goodbye.